Kids, we're here with the cowboy closer, Clifford Walker. What's up, Clifford?
Ooh, doggy, what is going on, brother? First off, it is just an absolute honor and a blessing and a privilege to be here with you. It really is, and I mean every bit of that. So I'm excited to spend this time with you and your community and hopefully add some value.
I like it. I love it. Thanks. 15, 20 minutes, we're going to be chatting. I know your story. I consider it a rags to riches story, the whole truck driver thing, real estate investor. You're going to add some value. So let's get right to it. What's one tip for a real estate investor or maybe an experienced investor all the way to someone who's brand new that wants to take it to the next level? Go for it.
Oh,
That's a tough one right off the bat. I throw it at you, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest tips when it comes to maybe scaling or growing to another level is to understand that nothing goes or grows to the next level until you do, right? And that's something that I actually learned being a part of the family mastermind where you and I met. Mm-hmm. And it really changed my perspective on things because you have to grow as an individual, right? Mm-hmm. In order to scale and maintain a certain level of success. Because somebody that runs a 6-figure company, a 7-figure company, and an 8-figure company probably all look completely different, and they probably all operate on a completely different level. And so I think that that's very important to keep in mind when we're just trying to grow and level up.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, coaching, getting individual coaching as an example. I mean, that's one example. Because, if you think about it, Tiger Woods back in the day, he had a coach. I mean, to take Michael Jordan, everyone to take it to the next level always usually has a coach, someone who is involved in the weeds like we as entrepreneurs are. They have someone who can kind of look at their business, meaning the client's business, look at other businesses and take bits and pieces from other businesses and apply it to, let's say, a client's business. So coaching does help enable someone to take it to the next level. Nice. That's a good start right off the bat because I threw a hard question at you right off the bat. So before we get into it, why you? Tell us a little bit about your background because it's a cool background.
Yeah, for me, it's actually just a pretty country background. So born and raised here in Texas. Man, what can I say? I'm trying to think about how far back I want to go. So I'll say this, before I got started into real estate, I was a truck driver and I did truck driving over the road for like 7 years. And I absolutely hated every single bit.
Yeah.
Every single bit of that. But what's so funny, and I'm a man of faith, but I truly believe though, if you're not doing the thing that you're called to do, it will lead to the thing that you're called to do. Mm-hmm. So while I was truck driving over the road, I was in West Texas. And if anybody's been out there, there's nothing out there but cotton fields and oil work, right? And so the radio literally did not work, but there was one specific channel that was picking up. And so they were on there, it was a podcast, and they were talking about wholesaling real estate. Really. And so while I was driving, I was listening to this podcast and I was just glued to the edge of my seat. And it was a guy out in New York. I need to reach out to that guy. I really do. But I listened to it and I was glued. I came home and told my wife, babe, we're going to get started wholesaling real estate. And it's been on, like that bug bit me and I got hooked. I started going to every seminar I could go to, watched every single YouTube video I could, etc., until I eventually got signed up with my first coach that actually taught me the business and how to find the deals, how to wholesale, how to flip, etc.
Wow. So that's an unbelievable journey. I mean, can you imagine? Well, you can imagine it, going from driving a truck to all of a sudden big, successful real estate investor, having clients, having, mentees, and then also having a successful book that's obviously, on the bestseller list. I mean, things have obviously gone well for you and people have followed your journey. So wait a minute, tell us a little bit about things that you found success in with respect to real estate, coaching, wholesaling, et cetera, et cetera?
So I mainly do mostly wholesaling. So I still do that to this very day. I do flips and even buy rentals, but they're not typically my main thing. So how I operate or how I do it, let me rewind. I believe that real estate is a relationship-based business, right? The more hands you shake, the more money you make. And so for me, I'm really big on building strategic relationships. So when I'm marketing direct to sellers and I get a deal that I want to flip, well, I'm just going to find a partner that can flip it to where they can manage that, do all the other stuff. I bring the deal, maybe fund the deal. They'll manage the project and oversee it and all that good stuff. And so now we can just split that deal and it's not distracting me from my main thing. And so that's kind of how I do the other strategies there. I think one of the biggest mistakes that specifically new investors make is they try to chase too many rabbits, right? Like we need to pick a lane and get really good at that lane and keep the main thing the main thing.
Got it. So then I got it. So that would be maybe a second suggestion, a second tip. First is I guess kind of grow yourself, and then second, stay within your lane because that will propel you to greater success. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, in my opinion, or at least it's helped me.
Yeah, and it's something obviously you're successful. So then tell me a little bit more about some of the real estate. No, give me one cool project that's gone from I don't know, maybe not successful and you've turned it around. It's been an unbelievably cool real estate project, either wholesaling or flipping or whatever the case is. Just give one case example so we learn a little bit about your deal.
I think one of the coolest deals is when I actually, and this is going to sound crazy, my very first deal, because it shifted something in me specifically. Like this was a couple that was going through divorce and they were facing foreclosure on that property as well. And so I came in there and literally I met them at the property. They were like fighting like cats and dogs. I kid you not. Like I had to put them into separate rooms to finish working out the details because they were just at each other's throat. And I was like, is this some kind of joke? Am I on punked or pranked or something? Like
Yeah, I get you.
the real estate investor / therapist, marriage counseling, all that stuff. But I ended up getting this deal subject to the existing mortgage. So we ended up doing something creative. And so when that deal actually closed, it just blew my mind for me because it showed me that I can focus on serving people's problems or solving people's problems and get paid in the process. And just to kind of back up, for me, I was always just a blue collar labor worker person. Like I don't have any fancy degrees on the wall. I've never had a corporate job or anything like that. It was always manual labor for me growing up and even to my young adulthood. And so for me, this was just a whole new realm. Like it showed me that, wait a minute, I don't have to be out here breaking my back to make a living. Like it was game changer for me. Like it showed proof of concept that this is actually doable. And I think that's what many people need, especially getting started, right? Like they hear all of us talk about, wholesaling or flips or buying rentals or doing all of these amazing strategies. But until they actually get proof of concept and see that it's doable, it just changes the game. It changes.
Yeah, so this is going to be a hard question. So let's just say I'm a real estate investor and I'm doing whatever. I don't know. Let's say my net worth is $5 million, whatever the number is. Why should I go down the path of Clifford Walker, Cowboy Closer, versus continue to go down my path that I'm currently going of whatever, buying for the long term? What is special about your deal? That's a tough question, I know, but does that make sense? That question makes sense for you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think those are two completely different strategies, in my opinion, because, we look at wholesaling or fix and flips. That's an active strategy, right? Like that's somebody's job. If I don't go and do another wholesale, I don't get another check, right? Versus buying rentals and building wealth, like that's a long-term strategy. I don't think that people should have to pick one or the other. I think that it can be this and that, right? Because that's just my opinion. Like, find a way to make it work. And like, people don't have to quit their jobs. Like, we have several members within our community that love their job, don't plan on quitting, and they're just buying rentals or building wealth and being strategic in the things that they do. And I just hated my job. And so I had to burn the boats and the bridges.
I understand. So diversification is a good angle. If someone's got a W-2 job, or they're long-term real estate investors, meaning investing for the long term, it might make sense to diversify and, join your community, or at least learn from you, as an example, ways to enrich their net worth. I get it. All right. So tell me a little bit about your community, because I know it sounds like it's a fast-growing community.
It is. So I have a community. It's called the Real Estate Corral Investors Network. And I just think that we're completely different when it comes to real estate coaching and a community. Number one, I'm not a transactional person. I am a relationship-based person. So our community, like, we hang out. We literally go meet for coffee and lunch, and I travel because this community is nationwide. Like, I go on my dime and go to Atlanta, Charlotte, we just got back from, Florida, like, travel just to meet community members, whether 2 people will show up or 20 people or 30 people. And we just hang out and have coffee, and we build each other up. I tell people that we are a community that is built on building generational wealth by serving other people. Right? Not just the property owners that we serve, but even other people within the community, right? Like, they know if they get stuck on a deal, they can reach out to another member, and they can help guide them through that process or walk through that process.
I got it. That's awesome. You guys are helping one another. It's not just so often that in some communities there's people competing for other deals. What they're doing is you're working with one another. How big is your community, by the way?
So right now we have a kind of free community that people can join on Facebook, where I think we have over 7,500 members on there.
Holy mackerel. That's a huge deal. I gotcha.
Yeah. Or at least I think so. And none of those are paid members. Like, that's all organic stuff there. And then I have private coaching, the Investors Network. I think we're about 150 members there.
Look at you. I get you. I get it. I knew. Yeah. And I bet you your books helped, because I think you're a good marketer too. I bet you that book that came out a while back has helped to grow that community, which is, by the way, a good thing for some of our viewers and listeners to learn about. And that is getting published, getting your name out there. That can help, heighten awareness about whatever it is you're doing. And again, usually our people in real estate. But tell us a little bit about your book.
The book was a funny kind of story how that happened. For me, I'm not a real deep person, in case you can imagine. Like, I just kind of fumble along things. Yeah. And so I'm a bourbon guy, I'll say that. So one night I was sitting on the patio and just having a bourbon and a nice cigar and reflecting, just appreciating God for the personal growth that I've had over my life over the last several years. Like, I've only been in real estate 5 years now. So I'm still new. I consider myself to be new on the block. And something just came over me. I don't know. I feel like it was God, the Holy Spirit, or it could have been the bourbon.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Right. But I said, I should put this in a book. I should write a book. And I literally went in the house, I got my laptop, and I just started pecking away, and I just started writing the book. And literally a month or two goes by, and my wife didn't even know I was doing this, but every night I would go out and have a cigar and write the book. And then I came in the house, and my wife, what made this so special is my wife is a writer, right? A journalist. And so I'm like, hey, babe, I wrote a book. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I wrote a book here. And I hand her the laptop with the document and all the book. And she's like, wow, you wrote a book. And it was funny. And that's just kind of what prompted it or what started it. And
Obviously, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say it's actually not specifically for real estate investors. It's more so the mindset that I developed because, like I mentioned at the beginning, I had to go to a whole new level. I had to transform my thinking and the way that I operated and the way that I moved. And so it was just like little habits and tactics that served me well over the last several years.
Yeah. Transform your thinking. Again, I think that happens from usually getting a coach, but I think obviously in your book, it sounds like it's a good kind of open dialogue between you and the reader about success. And I bet you a lot of, even though you don't say it was written for real estate investors, but a lot of it involves real estate because that's a great way to net worth. And again, that's called the Roadmap to Success, correct?
Yeah, and they can find it on Amazon.
That's exactly what I was going to. And by the way, how does someone get a hold of you if they're interested in learning about your community, the free one, 7,500, or the paid community?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm very active on social media. Clifford the Cowboy Closer there on Instagram, Facebook. I'm not hard to find. I've even started putting YouTube videos out too pretty regularly now this year, and really going to be trying to add more value with that going into next year. So definitely just Clifford the Cowboy Closer across the board.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the Cowboy Closer, and because I know there's an interesting story there as well.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I had got set up with my first coach and mentor. And so when they kind of showed me what to do and how to get going in wholesaling, I just hit the ground running. So much so that like my first month, I ended up getting 6 deals under contract that first month.
Which is a big deal. For people who don't know, that's a big deal. Yeah.
And my wife was like, oh, I guess you're just the Cowboy Closer, aren't you? And I'm like, you know what? I am. And so shout out to her. And it just kind of stuck and almost become like a brand at this point. So that's kind of how it came about.
I gotcha. I got it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's very unique because I can remember that it's an easy name, et cetera, et cetera. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Wow. I gotcha. I got it. So, okay. So we've gone over a lot in a short amount of time. What's one other little tidbit kind of in closing that you think can add value to a real estate investor? Again, so people can kind of understand a little bit about how you think, and who knows, maybe someone will call you, et cetera, et cetera.
I think one of the biggest tips that I think that I could add for anybody getting started is to focus on serving. I mentioned a moment ago that we're focused on building generational wealth by serving other people. That's not just our company motto, but that's a motto that I personally live by for myself. And so we have to remember, at least for me, we're dealing with sellers who are facing foreclosure, who are in probate. So they just lost a loved one, or they're tax delinquent or divorced, right? These families are going through a very tough season in their life. They don't need somebody to come in there and pray on them. They need somebody to come pray with them, right? Like, focus on that serving, and it's going to alleviate any pressure of you needing to be some type of grand closer, some type of grand cowboy closer, right? Like, I go in here and say, hey, Mr. Seller, how can I help you through this season? If we're a good fit to work together, great. If not, that's great too. I want to provide multiple resources for you and be a leg that you can stand on through this season. Like, if anybody's been lifing for a while, seasons are going to come, and we all need somebody, to kind of pray us through certain things or walk us through certain things. But social media will have us to believe that wholesaling real estate or flipping real estate is all about, a Rolex watch or Rolls Royce. Don't get me wrong. I love both of those things, right? Do not get me wrong, right? Like, I love those things, but it's not the foundation at which we do things. And so at least for me, that's how I operate. not only has that blessed me and served me financially in the things that I do, but it also gives me a certain level of peace and joy. It also gives me a certain level of purpose and fulfillment. And I think that that's what we're all kind of longing for in the back of our minds, having a life that is filled with purpose and joy and impact, right? So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
kind
that's a good 2 cents. It's more than just 2 cents. It's $2 million. I think that obviously your track record is great. Your community is it's got a reputation of growing fast, and it sounds as though you add value to people who are all along the investment spectrum, brand new people or newbies, all the way to people who've been around and investing in real estate for years. So, and I totally appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I like getting right to it, adding value to viewers and listeners, and I would say that's exactly what we did. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And once again, how does someone get a hold of you?
Clifford the Cowboy Closer across all platforms.
Yeah, that's a hard one to forget. So that'll be easy. Hopefully you'll be getting some calls from people who are trying to take their business to the next step and decide upon real estate to increase their net worth. So I really appreciate you being here. For all the viewers and listeners out there, once again, this is Kenneth French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out.